before anything else, the first move before starting the talk is to take out this, since the remaining of the workshop will take place in English only. And as soon as I take this off, just to thank the interpreters for all the help they have provided. Without them today, for me, it would have been a real challenge, as you can imagine. So, uno fala. Or if you want, fala me. But uno fala is better, as we will go. So, thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. So, sharing data and language resources, technical aspects and best practices. This is the last presentation for today. Thanks a lot for staying with us after so many hours of presentations and after so much content that we've been exchanging today. Let me put things in some sort of perspective. I would first like to start with clarifying three abbreviations that we've been using. One is MT at EC. First of all, one is MT, and MT is machine translation. It happens that it is also Marco Tadic. At least this is what I get in my inbox, MT, sent from MT. So then we have MT at EC. This is a system that is already in operation. It is being used by the public organizations in the member states. MT at EC now evolves. It evolves by, first of all, being improved as far as quality is concerned. It also evolves as far as the different DSIs. MT at EC is an integral part of some of the digital services that the SEP platform is providing right now. Part and facilitator of the evolution of MT at EC, but not only, is the ELRC initiative. So what we are doing here. And ELRC is also part of the SEP.at platform, which will integrate MT at EC, but it will also integrate other tools and resources that help multilinguality, that help cross-lingual communication, that help semantic interoperability across languages. So MT at EC is present and future, but it has also been past, okay? ELRC is present and it will be running for 1 more year, and most probably there will be some sort of continuation in one form or another. And SEP.at is the platform that is currently being built, and one of the starting blocks is MT at EC, as MT at EC is evolving. This is one thing. The second thing is, okay, now for MT at EC and its evolution, what do we need? We need those resources that that play a role in the translation process. So the first type of resource that we need is the resources that help the transformation part of the translation process. The bridge from one language, from the source language to the target language. But if translation was as simple as that, things would have been really easier to do. Translation is also an art of document production in the target language, and for this right document production in the target language, for modeling the target language correctly, we also need resources that model the target language. And these are the resources that ensure fluency, and this is the monolingual resources out of which we create language models for the target language, for each and every target language. If you have a system that translates from English into Croatian, we need a parallel corpus from English to Croatian, okay, to model the transformation process. we need also a monolingual corpus in Croatian so that we can model the target language. And last but not least at all, for the particular domains that we treat, be it biomedical, legal, technology, engineering, whatever, okay, depending on the domain classification that each of us is using, we need terminological databases. And terminology, I think, has been stressed. The importance of terminology has been stressed a couple of times. Now, with these things in mind, let me summarize what is the life cycle of data, of the data sets in ELRC. So we start with what we call the identification and selection of data. We go on with some sort of basic documentation of the identified and selected data. Basic documentation consists in just describing what the data is about. It is in this domain, in these languages, it comes from that particular public sector organization. Then we need to do some sort of cleaning and conversion as far as formatting is concerned. Some sort of technical tasks are involved here. And then we need to validate the cleanup and conversion results. As soon as we validate these results, we can go on, or we may go on, or we may want to go on to further processing of the resources. So if what we've got is just parallel documents, then we will need to perform some sort of alignment at different levels, at the sentence level and later at the phrase level, word level, etc. And as soon as the data have been processed, then we describe it again. We update the metadata, indicating that this data set that initially was just a set of two parallel documents now has been turned into and aligned by text. And of course, we store it away. Now, there are a couple of topics that we have addressed for each and every stage. Before going to the further topics, what I would like to stress is that here, for identification and basic documentation, it is something where we need your help. You know much better what you have in your hard disks, you know much better what exists in your organizations. So we need your help in identifying and selecting the data and in documenting the data in a very, if you want, rudimentary draft form. Cleaning and conversion is not something that we expect the public sector data providers to undertake. It is something that is the burden of ELRC. Validation is something that we would like to do together, and it will become evident a bit later. Further processing and description and storage is again with ELRC and the EC. Now, for identification and selection of data, one of the things that we would like to stress is the legal issues. Coming to the legal issues, I have a rather simplified approach. Starting from an engineering background, I try to see where the dichotomies are. So, in the legal world, one of the basic dichotomies is whether something is open or closed. If something is closed, at this moment in time, also taking into account the previous discussion, at this moment in time, something that is closed is not of immense interest. We're more towards, we're oriented towards the openly accessible data sets. Now, if something is openly accessible, it can be accessible either because it is public sector data or because it is licensed with an open license. Let me clarify one thing. In many countries, well, in some countries in Europe, the governments have opted for the so-called public government licenses. Okay. Now, in Croatia, I heard that there is not such a thing, and it is pretty good, and the government has opted for adopting the Creative Commons licenses. So the government has adopted open licenses, standardized open licenses, and this is a very good move. So what we will need to know is whether the data falls within the realm of the Public Sector Information Directive, and if so, then there is no problem with sharing. And following what the Commissioner said before, sooner or later, all the data sets will be tagged with the appropriate license. So there should be no issue. As soon as the legal issues have been resolved, we will have to take into consideration some technical issues, and one of the technical issues is the formatting. Now, with formatting, there are formats. First of all, let me clarify what we're after is digital data. So analog data is currently of no benefit to the process. So we are after digital data. Digital data in any format that they may be available right now. But whenever you say in any format or whatever, maybe this is half the truth, simply because there are formats that we love more than others. So the one format that may create problems and is a love-hate relationship is PDF. Simply because when you get PDFs, you don't know these PDFs, whether they are, first of all, processable, or they're just images, and then you may have to do some sort of optical character recognition. So, I mean, you enter into some sort of technical trouble that may be unnecessary. Why it may be unnecessary? For the simple reason that if you have a PDF, somewhere you may have the source. So it would be ideal if we get the source of the PDF. Then what we will do is to convert everything into standardized character encoding, and the standardized character encoding of today is UTF-8. And then we will also discard any sort of formatting, bold, italics, graphics, HTML tags, and the like. So in this example, all this information that Greece is a place of culture, the arts and sciences, that the site has decided to underline, put in bold, italicized, etc., is not at all necessary for our purposes. We're totally insensitive to this, and what we will do is just to transform everything into this plain text format. So if you have such a plain text format, it is absolutely okay for our purposes. Next thing that was also mentioned in one of the talks is personal data. We're very sensitive to personal data. There are all sorts of directives in Europe, but also in the member states. We would like not to deal with personal data. Rather, let me put it correctly. We would like not to make use of data sets where personal data is present. Okay? If this is the case, what we will have to do is to anonymize the data. Anonymization is a process that can be partially automated. How can you do it? You run tools like name entity recognizers. You recognize the names and you replace the names with variables, for instance. You substitute the names for variables. But then the issue will not be over, simply because you can, as we know from the good old days in philosophy, you can refer to an entity either by its name or by its properties. So just removing the names it may not be enough. In particular cases, for sure it will not be enough. Think of medical records. Just removing the name from a medical record will not be enough for full anonymization. But what I would like to tell you here is the following. It looks as if, not only in Croatia but also in many countries, there is so much public data out there that we could go for what the English say the low-hanging fruit first. Let's go for the low-hanging fruit first, the easy cases, and then let's leave the more complex cases for later on. In any case, if the need for data anonymization arises, the result of data anonymization has to be validated, and we will have to control the quality of anonymization, and such a validation and quality control may result in accepting or rejecting the language resource. This is yet another reason why we should go for the low-hanging fruit, for things that we know that do not run the risk of violating any sort of personal data directly. And as soon as we have completed this stage, what we will do is to align the documents, if the documents are not aligned already, describe them again with the appropriate metadata, and store them away in the ELRC repository. And you will see where the ELRC repository is and what it looks like. Right, so all these processes, the identification and selection, the legal clearance, the basic metadata description is something that we would like to do together. Without your help, we cannot do anything. And of course, all the technical tasks are borne by ELRC. What sort of mechanisms has ELRC put in place, and how can ELRC help for the time being? We provide us, an array of support services that are all available through the ELRC portal. You've already seen the ELRC portal because you've registered to the workshop. So here you have news, help desk, events, sources, anchor points, etc. So in the anchor points you will have all the details of Marko Tadic, who is the technical national anchor point, and you will have the details of the public national anchor point as soon as the person is appointed. You have information about all the events, all the workshops that we have held so far. And in each and every workshop page, you will have all the presentations that have been presented, and you will also have the workshop report. So everything is in here. Now, in the process of data sharing, there may be questions. It was evident today. I mean, there are questions. Can I share? If I am to share, and if I can't share, I have one or the other technical problem, what can I do? So you can ask these questions through the technical and legal support help desk, which is available through help desk here, okay? So here you can pose your question, or you can call us. You can call us here at the Secretariat at Paris. This number rings in Saarbrücken in Germany, at the offices of the DFKI, which is the coordinator of the ELRC consortium. Or you can send an email, pretty easy, help@cef-at-helpdesk.org, etc. Now, all questions will be distilled and will appear in the web forum that we will put in place, where you will have all questions on legal issues, on technical issues, on metadata issues that have been asked and have received an appropriate reply. Last but not least, we have the repository for sharing ELRs, and this may be one of the replies to the question that was raised during the previous panel about data storage. I mean, okay, all the data that Croatia will provide for MT and EC, where will it reside? One possibility, okay, that is also adapted to the particular needs is the ELRC repository, ELRC share. You can access it through the resources tab of the portal, okay? And what we do there, the first thing that we do is to ask you to register. We ask you to register because we need to know who provides the data. We need to operate in a transparent but also secure environment. You know who you talk to, and we need to know who we talk to. This is for the transparency and safety of the whole enterprise. Now, where do you go to register? You go from resources to ELRC-share.ilsp.gr. You just click the register button, and you are presented with a form that asks you your first name, your last name, your email, your country, and your organization. And then you decide on your desired account name and on your desired password. I mean, it should take something like half a minute, unless you're very indecisive about your desired account name or password. In principle, it should be half a minute. Okay. As soon as we get this form filled in, we will acknowledge the request to open an account, and we will send you an activation email to the address that you have indicated. You just click the activation link and your account is set up. Okay, it is as simple as that, and as secure as possible at this moment in time. Right, and then of course you've registered because you want to provide something, and what we ask you to do is to go to this tab, contribute resources, and the first thing that we would like to have is an identifier for the resource, an identifier for the data set, a name. Okay, it may be the most descriptive name that may come to mind at that point in time. Suppose that it is an English-Croatian parallel corpus in the e-justice domain. That's a name, possibly. Okay, or you can abbreviate it as e-justice, ENHR. Something that will act as an identifier for reference between you and us. And then what we need is a short description, 1 line, 2 lines, that say that, well, yes, this is an English-Croatian parallel corpus, or it is a Croatian monolingual corpus in the domain of e-health, okay? And then the languages, if it is monolingual, just Croatian. If it is bilingual, Croatian and English, or Croatian and French, whatever the languages that are included in the data set. Then the only thing that you need to do is just to browse your directory and upload your data set. Your data set will not be published until we contact you. We contact you to ask you, first of all, if this is an open data set. If it is an open data set, is there a particular license that is attached to it? And a couple of other questions like, if it is in the domain of law or health or justice, simple things like that. Do not expect something more than 5 minutes. It shouldn't last more than 5 minutes. And it can be either asynchronously, we can send you an email, or we can call you, or you can call us. This is something that we can arrange. Right. If there is a new resource, sorry for that, if there is a new resource, then you can repeat this process for as many times as you wish. So this is one possibility for data storage. What I would like to say here is the following. I mentioned MetaShare a while ago. ELRC, the ELRC share repository, is powered by MetaShare. And what we want to do is not to create islands and fragments in the data sharing world. So, whatever from ELRC can be used and can be harvested from ELRC into MetaShare, it can be done. Okay, and we will do it. Whatever we can take from the open data portal that is openly licensed and is felt to be appropriate, is believed to be appropriate for machine translation purposes, then it should find its place in ELRC. And we will not hesitate to do it. So, fortunately or unfortunately, there are many parallel initiatives for many different things. But one thing is certain, that our networks will cross in the end, simply because there is convergence to, it may not be the next month or the next year, but I expect that things will start converging pretty soon. Right. Let me finish with the following. I will not waste any time since I have just 5 minutes left. If there is anything that has become really apparent, maybe even to a boring degree today, is that the data that we produce, either the monolingual data that we generate on a daily basis, or the data that we translate, okay, on the inspiration of the source document, have a value. And in order to be able to preserve this value and add to this value, we need to think of our data as real assets for the society, real assets for us, the citizens, real assets for the companies, why not, real assets for research purposes, in any case, assets. Okay. Now, whenever you have assets, you need to think, we all need to think about how we manage these assets. So I will skip a number of slides here, which you will of course have access to, because all the presentations will be available on the website. And I go to the last slide, which just shows a possible instantiation, if you want, of a language resource life cycle that bears some sort of sustainability. So, as soon as we start a translation project, let's specify how we perform this translation project. What sort of terminological resources we will use, what sort of tools we will use, things like this. We go on with the production. We produce a translation, we validate the translation, then we share the translation with the appropriate tools, with licenses, or with any sort of operational model that the data sharing platform has adopted. And then, of course, we store the translations. We maintain and preserve, simply because the translation will not lose its value. In this way, it will not lose its value, and it will not be thrown away or hidden in a drawer for good. So, with this, I would like to complete this last presentation, and we go on with the rest of the program. Thank you very much.